should be timely conversation since we're always dealing with people that believe they know everything about sales and simultaneously know nothing. So we're down one friend today.
We're down a friend.
Josh, you'll have to play, twice the role you normally do. Are you up to the task?
Does that guy ever say anything anyway?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, but yeah, you're right. Like the shoes are pretty small. And so, kidding, Sean.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to picking up Sean's slack. I can see where his commitments lie. The one thing that has stayed true is the phone. The phone has been a big piece of everyone's go-to-market motion, even if they didn't want it to be. I think the email had its day in the sun. I think that the phone is coming back and is becoming king again. We went from more of like a full-cycle AE who owns his own book to then we fractionalized that towards the full-cycle AE with account manager attached. And then it turned into, we have inside and outside sales. Then it turned into, that basically shifted into SDR, BDR, AE, and then AMs. So now we're fractionalizing what was one role into three. And now you have like sales engineers and technical solution consultants. It's like, dude, we just blew the shit up with like 6 different roles. Like, there's going to be fragmentation and friction.
Welcome. You're back again on the illustrious Cheat Code and Friends. We're down one friend today.
We're down a friend.
Josh, you'll have to play, twice the role you normally do. Are you up to the task?
Does that guy ever say anything anyway?
Sean? I think it's normally like checking the ski conditions and buying a pass in a different tab while we're talking. But yeah, I mean, every once in a while. But yeah, you're right. Like the shoes are pretty small. And so, kidding, Sean. And so we're joined again by a great guest and new friend, Joy Gilkey, who's the CEO of TitanX, which I just love the name of the company. Sounds like you guys are doing like rockets and interplanetary stuff over there, so that's always good.
Karate in the garage.
Kind of are. Which is, focusing on, one of our favorite topics, which is, operating and go-to-market sales tends to be kind of the biggest circle in all of those concentric circles. And I think the interesting thing about TitanX and really kind of why we wanted to have this conversation with Joey is, as I was saying in our pre-call, like every founder, whether they are a go-to-market founder or, product-based founder, technical founder, which is the latter is what we tend to deal with more, strangely seems that they know both everything about sales and nothing about sales in the same sentence. If everything is going right, it's because they're following what, has become a very standard playbook, kind of, talk to more people, get more sales, funnel, top of funnel, fill it and work everyone through, oftentimes conceptually from a volume and velocity standpoint. But if things aren't working, they don't know anything and they need to bring in an expert. And then strangely, a lot of those experts subscribe to that same line of thinking, which I think if there's one consistency that's come out of the past, 5 years and certainly, kind of hyper weighted to the last couple years is that, the old way of selling, the old way of garnering buyer attention just isn't working any longer. And I think buyers' expectations are probably very much at the center of that. So anyway, that's my long-winded intro to get into that. TitanX really looks to 3 to 4x, the production of sellers and being that's who we deal with every day. Joey seemed like a good guest to bring on and kind of talk through, seems like a pretty big and lofty goal. So Joey, let's hop right into it. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to picking up Sean's slack. I can see where his commitments lie.
Exactly. He claims to be bent over a toilet, so we'll take his word for that. We won't make him, present video evidence.
Excuses are the nails that built the house of failure, Sean. So
that's right. This
intro just keeps getting better.
Kidding, Sean. I don't know you.
So kind of run us through the value prop there, give the audience a little bit of background on yourself, and obviously we can dive in a multitude of ways.
Yeah, cool. So TitanX, we are a software, but we don't sell you software, we sell outcomes. And so for us, we live in the go-to-market world. We've been in the go-to-market world collectively as a leadership team for I hate when people say that. It's probably a long time. I don't know.
250 years of collective
250 years of knowledge and wisdom. No, we
just passed our bicentennial.
But we have been in the game. I personally started in the enterprise world, climbed that pretty quickly at more corporate Fortune world. Left that to be more of a VP of sales and then eventual CRO of more like mid-market companies. Launched the first company that I ran, sold that in 2020. Got really bored after I made some money and then decided to go do some consulting. Got bored with that. Decided to go build something more substantive that scratched the itch. When you make money, you get bored. And so you just try to run through a couple of brick walls.
Or even if you're in sales and, have ADD.
Correct. Yeah. Bought a farm, got bored, had kids. Not bored with that yet, thankfully. My wife would kill me if I said otherwise. Love kids.
You got bored with the kids or with the farm?
Or the farm?
No, the farm. No.
Okay.
I mean, but now I'm about to make it. I'm building this big, like 8,000 square foot rec center on it right now. So I'm going to make it fun. And some golf holes. But
now we have two people on this call that own a farm.
Is that right? Josh, you own a farm too?
And now I've got a farm in mid-America, in rural Missouri.
Oh, nice. We can jam on that all day. It's just a big yard. I have no animals except for a golden retriever. So enterprise sales, then mid-market, found a couple niches back in the day, eventually moved myself into B2B tech world. And that's where I did a lot of consulting and fractional CRO work. Ended up finding this super niche boutique product that was really slow, really expensive, but was extremely powerful. And so I ended up acquiring the IP to that back in 23, thinking that I would just leverage it in my consulting firm and with some services attached to that. Realized pretty quickly that I thought I was buying a moat for the castle, and the moat was more valuable than the castle. And so I turned it into the castle. That is what eventually led to the launch of TitanX in June 1st of 24. So we're now about 19, 20 months old. We're about to cross the 9.5 million, I think, at the end of this month in our first 19 months, because we're go-to-market people. So that's what we know. And so we've doubled and tripled down on that.
Something to that whole go-to-market though.
If you know it. But yeah, I've had the privilege, man, of watching the industry evolve over time, watching the headwinds come, watching AI come in, watching the hype come and go, and a lot of different things. But one thing that has stayed true is the phone. The phone has been a big piece of everyone's go-to-market motion, even if they didn't want it to be. I think the email had its day in the sun. I think that the phone is coming back and is becoming king again, but we never left. And so for us, TitanX, our value props are very clear, which is right now you have reps on the phone. They are experiencing anywhere from a 2 to 6% connect rate. So they make 100 dials a day. They talk to 2 to 6 people. Yep. 2 of those 6 are probably the wrong person or not even the right not even at the company anymore. TitanX fundamentally shifts that model. And so the average connect rate for people that use TitanX is 25%. So they make 100 dials, they talk to 25 people instead of 6, which shifts your rep capacity model drastically, which means you hire less, you have to do less volume. And so, I think and I'll stop after this because I'm talking too much, but I think if you look at if I'm a VP of sales or a CRO and I'm looking at pipeline gap, I've had 2 options to cover the gap or hit lofty goals, which, as you guys know, goals have never gone down. They only go up and to the right. If you have a gap or you have a goal you hit, you have 2 options, which is I need to add headcount, throw bodies at it, or I need to add volume and increase the amount of dials or activities that my reps do. And we've come at it from a fundamentally different approach, which is what if your reps could do substantially more? You don't need to add more reps, and they could do it in far less activity. And we crack that code by figuring out who answers the phone and who doesn't before you ever hit dial.
Well, I think Justin touched on it a little bit in the beginning of, like, everyone, especially technical founders, are going to follow a formula, the old Salesforce formula of SDR, blah, 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 handoff. There's a million different formulas out there, right? Yep. And one of the age-old things is just, our quotas went up. We need to add headcount and coverage, right? So you're always fighting that battle. And then, we got to add SDRs. We got to do this. We got to do that. So if you're, combating that, and you touched on it here a little bit, but let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into, that old headcount battle. My plan is based on this many headcounts, these milestones, blah, blah, blah. What would you say to those founders, trying to combat that a bit?
The first thing I'd say is, I understand it from a logical sense. If I know no other option and I have a rep capacity model and I'm 30% with a gap, then I need 30% more reps, unless I'm going to really double down on productivity, efficiency, or activity. The second is like, you're not going to get away from that conversation because there's a lot of companies that promote from within, and you do want to have a talent pool you're pulling from. So we're not telling you to eliminate your team. However, I think that we've gotten fat and lazy, especially in the late, teens, early 20s. Money was seemingly free. And so it was synthetic in a lot of ways in terms of the growth of the market. And I think we made a lot of bad behavioral shifts in that time where we threw headcount at it and we weren't caring about bottom line profitability. And then CFO's job was pretty easy at that point. CFO's job got much harder, which made everyone else's job harder because the bottom line was now important. As you guys being investors, you know that, we just took on a Series A, more growth equity. And, one of their criteria is break even or profitable, bootstrapped or lightly capitalized companies. And I think that's becoming more and more the norm, more popular. I think at least that's the way I
think
prefer
fundamentally, if you go back, and I was actually looking at one of these the other day, the interview with the CEO of Box, right? And at the time they're talking about, fundamentally spending $7 to earn $1, and then the payback period, being indefinite.
Infinite.
And fundamentally, I mean, like that's not acceptable any longer. But to your point, like even last week, I was sitting on a board meeting, Q4, of last year, kind of wrap up, and then obviously projections into 26. And like, one of the big things, this early stage company, like first shot at building a sales team was like abysmal, like complete failure. And but yet their plan for the next year is like 2.5x growth. And that all hinges upon that they hired the right people coming in again. Like I do think hiring is probably one of the most difficult things that any organization does, certainly within the sales function.
Yeah.
And yet that numbers game makes it all dependent upon, if you're bringing in the economics of today, right? So path to profitability, fundamentally you have to be running a strong business, whether you're venture or bootstrap back. And yet you're still putting not the constraint on heads, but you're really putting the constraint on your ability to hire those heads. And it's just funny to me how no one defaults to how do we get more performance out of the people that we know are performing rather than, wanting to take that complete new gamble.
Yeah, I think that we have to shift the mindset from rep capacity models and headcount scaling to like Delta Force type model. Like I think that we need to start building out special forces sales teams that are equipped with the right arsenal, if you will, to go to battle. And I think we also have to shift the way we look at, especially the SDR BDR model. Right? We could talk about full cycle, we could talk about bottom of funnel and everything as well. But I think top of funnel SDR BDR is the most hurt. When I sit down with Vista Equity and their go-to-market value creation team, the mandate's pretty clear from them, like get rid of SDRs. And so if that's true with Vista, it's going to be true for most of us. And so now what I will push back on them and have pushed back on them very, very clearly is I think you're just looking at it wrong. It's not that the function itself needs to go away. It's that it needs to evolve. And it needs to go to the special forces model where it's the Pareto principle. Your top 20% is producing 80% of your results. Well, then we should invest more in the top 20% and then do our best to replicate that as we need to scale headcount, a little bit more. Can't just stay at the headcount we have.
Well, again, fundamentally, like to the point of like evolving the role, like when most people talk about SDRs, they talk about extremely low cost resources, extremely green resources that are adopting, I guess what in their mind equals like the most repeatable part of the sales funnel. But it's also the most critical aspect and the most difficult aspect of the sales funnel, right? Like you have to get someone in the room virtually, obviously, in most cases, in order to begin a true sales cycle. And that's the most difficult factor. And frankly, I think there is some shift as we look at like what's happening today versus what's happened in the past. Mm-hmm. But like, most folks will readily admit that like they're selling to a decision maker that is at some sort of an executive level. And that decision maker will readily admit they don't want to just take some random call out of the blue with someone that doesn't know anything about their business.
Correct.
And, like, so I think that's the crux there. Like, this is no longer a cost arbitrage to throw, some very green 45K a year, I guess 45 to 65, maybe even more than that.
You wish, brother. I wish it was still that.
Well, I'm literally using the example that that the sport coat was
we were presented
right?
with.
Yes.
And yet impression your business is giving to this, decision making
To the market. Yeah, it's insane.
I think if you think about like the history in maybe the last 2 decades, right? We went from more of like a full cycle AE who owns his own book to then we fractionalized that towards the full cycle AE with account manager attached. And then it turned into, we have inside and outside sales. Then it turned into, that basically shifted into SDR, BDR, AE, and then AMs. So now we're fractionalizing what was one role into 3. And now you have like sales engineers and technical solution consultants. It's like, dude, we just blew the shit up with like 6 different roles. Like there's going to be fragmentation and friction. And
your
get
cost
it.
of sales out of whack somehow. Weird.
Yeah, like predictable revenue. Aaron Ross wrote this book back in 2011, maybe. Like shit doesn't work anymore. Doesn't. I'm sorry. I love the guy. I'm sure he has really smart things to say nowadays, but it's not relevant anymore. And yet we've stayed in this path of either we're going to run that model or we're going to do nothing. And there's a really solid model you can run that unfortunately no one is really latching onto yet. I think it's starting to grow. I also had just a fundamental different belief around the sales development function. I don't think it's a sales function personally. I really don't. I think it's an ad channel.
Yeah,
it's an ad channel.
It's
an ad channel. Yeah. That's it.
It's awareness.
I look at it the same way I look at ads, right? It is meant for audience activation. It's not the primary driver of SDR should not be meetings and appointments. Yes, we need to meet and have appointments to close deals clearly, but you don't think about it the same way with ads, right? We run different types of ads. We run brand ads, we run conversion ads, we run awareness ads, we run win-back ads, like we run account-based ads. We should be looking at the sales development function the same way. Is how do I deliver an ad efficiently and effectively to our end users, our end buyers, or stakeholders, or above the line, below the line contacts in an account, so that we can build brands, we can create conversions, but we can also do win-back, so we can also find intent in the market that's proprietary to us because no one else is going one-to-one. Right? An ad doesn't give us the feedback necessarily. An email doesn't give us the feedback. It's why I love the phone. It's just conversational advertising. And if we can activate an audience, not even around conversions and appointments and meetings, and instead we can uncover interest and intrigue and intent, the 3 I's, and we can take that intel, that could be the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the go-to-market sell, which is I'm on the front lines getting information that no one else has from my SDRs. What do I do with that as the strategy, right? And that's the model. Like we have a 25-to-1 LTV to CAC ratio because we run a model that's not around conversion, which is counterintuitive, but that's the model that works. And so if you treat it like ads, then you should then fundamentally look at it differently. And so
let's talk about like how that manifests, right? Like even from, like you made a pretty bold statement in terms of like the ultimate outcome and goal of, TitanX in the software. Even the starting point around that, like when you start talking about, teams that are already investing or wanting to invest and grow an SDR team, and you even ask them, okay, so how much of your, not even TAM, but ICP, the target list that you want to put in front of these folks, do you possess today? And the answer to that is normally never 100%. It's normally like 50% or below, right? And then that's just at the account level. And then you get into contacts and, there's normally like it's not that great, but we're trying to use, Apollo or Zoom Info or whatever it happens, or reverse LinkedIn scrapes and so on. Like, it just seems like, again, you're investing ahead of the maturity of all the ingredients that make that function successful. So like, where do you guys start in even ensuring that the foundation is strong enough to support what you need to build on top of it?
I think we're really obsessed with product market fit, to which I would agree with. There's message market fit that we have failed miserably at, which is how does the messaging around the product fit with the market in which we sell it to?
Yeah, different things for sure.
We've lost the art of that. And so, and messaging, so outbound, let's just go outbound specifically. it's a simple concept to just absolutely crush outbound. It's very difficult, or it's very hard, I should say, to pull off. Right? Outbound comes down to 4 basic pillars: list, message, rep, follow-up. List is clear. Am I targeting the right accounts that I know I can sell to? Right? You have your TAM, your SAM, your SOM, whatever. Then you have who are the contacts within the account that are worth me talking to. Now, worth me talking to does not mean decision maker all the time. Right? If I'm selling into Vanta as a customer of ours, if I'm selling into Vanta, I could go after Stevie, who's the CRO and is likely the one who holds the checkbook and signs the papers. But then you've got Willie, who's the VP of Global Biz Dev, and you have the management layer that doesn't make decisions, but they're impacted by what we do. They're the ones who's getting the mandate from Stevie. And so if that's true, then those are valuable conversations that I can have within an advertising campaign with reps to uncover intent or intel about that account. That when I do talk to Stevie, I'm far more informed and my conversion's much higher. So that's list, right? Do I have the right people above the line, below the line, at the right accounts? Then there's message. When I go and talk to a manager, my messaging is substantially different because their pain and goals is different than if I go talk to a VP, then an SVP, then a CRO, then a CFO. And so are we nailing messaging by persona? Then it's the rep. Am I training the rep to deliver the message to the right contacts at the right time, at the right accounts? And then it's follow-up. We're not knockout artists, right? Again, to my point on conversion being like the North Star that we care about, it's flip it on its head. It's not. It's about the intel I can gain, because that eventually leads to conversions. But because we're not knockout artists, we must follow up. I'm not going to get someone in the first conversation. To your point, they're not likely to convert with a random 24-year-old kid on a phone call to go meet with my AE over here, right? They're just not. And so all that to say, you have list, message, rep, and follow-up. We don't do any one of those very well. Most of the market does not. And we certainly do not allow the data that lives in each of those to get outside of the silos that is in each of those. Right. So the reason that TitanX is very impactful is because when you can go from 3% connect rate to 25 is because I'm now creating a much faster moving flywheel to get all that data and understand. I'm getting a lot more at bats. So therefore, am I targeting the right people at the right accounts? I'm getting a lot more at bats. So when I have messaging, is it landing? Is it not? When I tweak something, does it work? Does it not? I'm getting my reps ramped a lot faster. If they're having 8 times as many conversations, they're ramping 8 times faster, getting the at-bats. And then follow-up, because I'm having a lot more conversations, I'm getting a lot more people in my follow-up buckets to then convert. And so I think we have to start looking at SDRs less like a cog in a machine and more like that mitochondria of the go-to-market cell.
So that's a fundamental, buyer maxim that you need your customer to believe, right? So I would assume that's a challenge or at least a learning curve for most organizations. So like, just how do you go about, educating the market? I mean, I'm sure like, hey, if you advertise a software that will take your conversion rate from 3 to 25, like people are going to be interested in it. But to your point, like you also want to be measuring those outcomes. Like, are they more effective once they're getting those connects? So
I think
what's that process look like?
We're not going to anchor on meetings. We're going to anchor on creating a data flywheel. You speak about messaging. I feel like a lot of founders are going to just be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest thing is to say, how do you like to buy? It's like, would you just take a meeting with a 24-year-old that called you? Probably not. Right. If that 24-year-old threw something your way, no conversion, no necessarily call to action for you, and said, hey, like we did a state of the market report on how CROs are looking at cold calling and their go-to-market motion. You want me to send it to you? Yeah, they are. Get the message in front of them. And then here's what a lot of people aren't doing is that we have gotten away from the art of full cycle account executive self-sourcing or account executives becoming full cycle and self-sourcing. So if you look at your whole funnels, every channel and every attribute, like wherever you attribute your conversions from, if you look at the show rates on all of them, SDR is going to be the lowest of all of them. The show rate's so much lower. Okay, well, if you move that and shift it to where the account executive is the one who sets the meeting, the show rate usually is 20 to 30 points higher, in a lot of cases. Because when you put a professional seller, someone who's probably more in the game to have that conversation on a warmer person, it's going to convert. And your question, though, on is that's a hard thing to talk about with founders. Yeah, it's why most companies fail. And so you have to say, like, the reason most companies fail is because they think that if I just go hire some kids and tell them to get on the phones, they're going to generate pipeline. And we know how to handle outbound SDR generated opportunities. And my AEs know how to take someone from cold to closed. And that's going to all of a sudden become profitable overnight. It's just not, Bubba.
Yeah, I mean, because that's normally the biggest friction point there, right? Like, hey, these are expensive resources. We want them, famous quote, we want them selling or closing.
Yeah.
But even to that point, it's interesting that, I actually need to take this opportunity and loop back to the Portco I'm thinking with this piece of info. But like from your SDR team, you really only monitor one thing, and that's the success, right? Like the meeting that has been able to be set. And even with that, you don't really monitor like what the context is that's being passed along. Like, have you done new discovery?
Yeah.
What's promoting a healthy call on that meeting, that demo, whatever it happens to be. But you certainly don't look at the other side of the equation normally, which is like, why aren't people accepting meetings? What's going on within that organization? Like, Josh, we've talked a lot of times, like, some of our portcos are contract cycle dependent. Like, when is that incumbent contract up?
Why aren't you capturing that
information? You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Just some simple example of what a skilled resource being on the front line of that conversation can gather, and act like a bit more of what we call a founding AE, which is like where you're really kind of building the plane while you're flying it. Like you're trying to hone in message, you're trying to hone in message market fit and product market fit, and who's our real gatekeeper, who's our buyer, like map all that stuff out based on feedback quickly, and you're making the appropriate tweaks. Like there should be so much information that you can gain from that interaction.
And like if you want to get practical, like I'll give the audience a practical advice is let's just stay in the realm of phone, because it's the only one where you're going to get that information. You're not getting that from cold emails or LinkedIn. So you're either getting a yes, a no, or a nothing. Whereas in a conversation, I'm going to get something from you more than likely if I ask the right questions. But what we call disposition science, right? So when I make cold calls, the outcome of that call is labeled in some way, shape, or form, also known as a disposition, right? The way that you structure your dispositions and the way that you hold your reps accountable to the discipline of how they disposition calls will tell you an entire story on what's working. I'll give you a very clear example. So for us, the main 6 dispositions we have: meeting set, activated lead, not now, not me, referred, not interested. Now, the reason that's important is because if I'm running a campaign to a new segment or new titles or, whatever it might be, new industries, I'm making a lot of assumptions going out the gate. The longer you make assumptions for, the bigger that delta becomes from reality.
Yep.
And so when you have dispositions at the back end of a call, and let's say I look at it like a big pie and use dispositions as a slice of that pie. If I'm noticing that my not me's and referreds makes up 40% of my dispositions, not me's being, I call Josh and he's like, nah, I don't handle that. Thanks. Yeah. Right. Or I call Jesse, he's like, yeah, it's not me. That's actually Josh's job. Okay. So those are not me's and referred. If that's 40% of my conversations, then my targeting is wildly off. How do I shrink those slices so that naturally the other ones I care more about, meeting set, activations, and not nows, get larger? Right. And then the same thing, if I'm getting a massive swath of not interested, that's likely pointing to the fact that it's either a rep skill gap issue, how they're communicating the message, or it's the message itself. Right. And then you jump in and analyze the calls. Where are they getting hung up on? Where's the conversation not completing? And so on. If it's that the rep is just sucking at delivering the message because there's other reps that are delivering it and they don't have as high of a not interested, well, it's a rep issue. If the whole swath of our reps has not interested, then I know that it's a messaging issue. You can get this really you can dissect the campaign very quickly if you just have discipline around what happened when I talk to the market.
Yeah, I find that the discipline to collect that data is lacking in almost every organization, whether they're a seed stage startup or a Fortune 500. I mean, that is the stuff that differentiates and creates process and scale.
When we hire new reps, the first week is they only listen to call recordings and the disposition that we gave. We have a disposition definitions page they have to study and know. And then we have to test them. Hey, here's a call recording. How would you disposition that? Boom, got it right. When you get 100% correct, I will now let you talk on the phone, because the disposition is that important to me. That intel and that data on how this is going is far more important to me than getting you out there in the field. Right. Because if you're getting out there in the field and you're giving me false positives or false negatives, then I'm going to be based off of false data that doesn't allow me to help you.
I think the other interesting part of it is beyond just, calling campaigns, that gives you data that you can use for your marketing, your advertising, all of those things that you can, be serving up content to people that are in a certain stage, certain bucket, certain disposition, to use your term. Like, it just makes it that much more impactful as you're trying to generate awareness and interest in the market that you're canvassing.
Yeah. I mean, literally, we just ran an SKO last week up in New York, big financial company. And the main topic of discussion, so we basically had a whole pod. And so they have marketing in the room, digital, partners, ABM, net, green space, sales development team. And the main theme of it was coordination drag, which is we have data in all these silos. Marketing has their own data, partners have their own data, ABM has data, sales development has data. And we're not coordinating our signals across these different pods or these different pod functions, which then creates coordination drag, which means our speed to truth, or time to truth, as we call it, is so long and or it never happens that we're all spending way more money in our own departments than if we just had a place where we aggregated all this information and made better decisions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how little people pay attention to data aggregation and what you do with it. It's just one of those things, we try to center around it, the bare minimum in an early stage company, a CRM, right? The source of truth that people can run off of, right? And, we, like anybody, Salesforce is the market leader. It doesn't really matter, right? It's
correct.
What are you going to do and how are you going to use it and how are you going to activate it? And it becomes one of those things that becomes a black hole fast, right? And it becomes a rat's nest if it's not curated in a way that's usable.
Yeah. Imagine marketing was armed with, marketing loved at one point, they've fallen out of love with 6 Sense, demand base, like intent buyer.
Intent-based stuff.
Now they've moved more towards like what seems like the same thing, like common rooms and things of that nature. It's all like signal coordinate or coordination and orchestration. But imagine if you had a frontline 24-year-old kid. Let's say I'm Amex GBT, right? Global business travel. And my biggest competitor is Navan. And my reps at GBT are talking to the market, and I'm talking to different controllers or VPs of finance or whatever, or benefit coordinator. And I didn't get a conversion, but I found out they're in a pilot right now with Navan. If that information got back to marketing, that can then mean I can now swarm that entire account with anti-Navan campaign.
That's right.
And it's time to truth, right? I just found that time to truth was one conversation in a call. That signal gets fed to the rest of the org. And now my ABM team is going up and down that, trying to talk about anti-Navan type stuff. I'm going and I'm running ad campaigns against that entire org about why Navan, yes, they have a free trial, but GBT's paid. And so therefore, why is it free? Right? That is an orchestration that can be built off of one signal that can come from a phone call.
So before we get too far into just like general, what you can do when you change the equation on connect rates and so on. By the way, I do want to mention, like, your analogy is interesting because what were all those intent platforms fundamentally based on? I mean, a strong combination between ad network and search data, right? So like getting back
the dark web, Justin. It was
unstructured digital breadcrumbs we leave everywhere.
So the big question is always like, all right, well, how do we call the right people, right? Mm-hmm. So fundamentally, on the TitanX side, like, what are you guys doing differently there in order to increase that probability?
I'll answer it with a question. Josh and Justin, if I cold called you right now, you don't recognize the number. Let's say it doesn't say spam. It's just a normal number you don't recognize. How likely are you to pick it up?
0%.
Very unlikely. Yeah,
it's funny. I think I've answered like unknown numbers, like, I want to say like a couple times, but very few times. But like, I always get a weird feeling, and it'll be like, oh, that's actually, my dentist calling from some number.
Like kid's school or something,
and it happened to be a thing.
Little vibes.
I mean, but I largely never answer, numbers that aren't in my
phone. So next question will be, then if I called you 5 times over the next 2 months, I'm probably not changing your mind on that, correct?
Correct.
Probably not.
Correct. That is called human behavior, right? Yeah. And so the reason that's important is our prospects have an answer to that question too. The challenge that presents is from a mathematical or a statistical perspective, and what we're entirely built around is this idea of what's called the reach rate. So the reach rate is very simple. If I have 1,000 prospects, of those 1,000 prospects, I'm going to call down that list 5, 6, 7, 8 times over the next couple months. The percentage that you will ever reach on the phone, ever, of the whole 1,000 is about 20% at max. So there's only 200 people out of 1,000 that are ever going to answer. The other 800 are like you guys, right? So if 20% are reachable and 80% are not, The challenge with that, with your reps and with your productivity and efficiency, is that you don't know who's who. So what do you have to do?
Mm-hmm.
Keep calling.
Just
treat
keep
them all
calling.
the same.
Yeah.
What
just
if you
keep calling.
knew? What
Yeah.
if you knew? Right?
Mhm.
That was the fundamental thesis that we came up with years ago. Is what if we could tap into the right data networks and the right sources, and we built our own models, and we could figure out who is likely to answer cold calls versus who's not. It's just human behavior. If I look at any campaign across any industry, any persona, any segment, it fluctuates between 12 and 25% that'll ever answer throughout a campaign. If that's true, then I'm sending my reps on a rabbit trail of sifting hay in a haystack to find the handful of needles all day, every day.
And probably not
and you're basing
dispositioning it right.
their territory, their target account list on inflated numbers.
And so the math is kind of crazy. If I have 1,000 prospects and I don't know who's who, I got to treat them all the same. And I have a 4% industry average connect rate. It's going to take me about 6,300 dials to find those 200 people, right? If I tell you who those 200 people are, because I know, and I say just focus on these people, within 7 dials to that list, you will reach 95% of them. That means that you will reach about 190-ish of those 200, and you'll do it in 650 dials. So 6,300 dials to 5,200.
Equation. Yeah.
It's the math of sales. That's what we're built around.
Yeah.
And so we're doing the same thing as 6N's demand-based, et cetera, except we have an extremely unique data set at the phone level. They're taking digital breadcrumbs for your online intent signals, and we're taking phone, telecom, carrier, consumer, and business data, and we're aggregating that. We're running a model against it. We're saying, here's the behavior of this person. This number is attached to this person. And they answer. I know it's Justin's number. It's active. And I know that he answers. I know it's Josh's number. It's active. He does not answer. How would I treat Josh differently than I would Justin?
So do you also serve that information up to your customers in terms of like, hey, I'm going to load my call list. These guys are not. You need to treat them fundamentally different than the folks that you do.
Yeah, so we mark them high intent, low intent, bad data. High intent's the needles in the haystack. People that have propensity to answer. Low intent's like you, Justin's like maybe I'll pick it up every now and again, but it's very rare, or I never do. And then bad data is I call Josh and some chick named Sally owns that number. But Zoom Info thought it was Josh.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. About 13 to 25% of every list is bad.
Okay, so that's awesome. So but the secondary question becomes still like the age-old garbage in, garbage out thing, right? Like, hey, all right, I gave you people that are going to answer the phone. You still suck. You're still a churn risk for that, for my software. Who knows, whatever the contract length is down the road, or you're the risk of not being my advocate, which is, just as bad. So, I mean, really, you've got to fundamentally get people to improve the motions that they're running on top of the ability to have that first conversation.
List, message, rep, follow-up. What we find oftentimes in our pilot, because the disparity between the conversations they had before and the conversation they have now is drastic. They're used to having 40 to 60 connects a month. They have 40 to 60 a week, right? Minimum. So what that means is a couple things. One of which is we tend to spotlight pretty quickly on like 2, maybe 3 big things. One of which is your data sucks. You're not targeting the right people. You're targeting the wrong titles, the wrong industry, and so on. Your feedback loop was so slow or not even attached at all to where I didn't realize my reps, because they're only getting a few at-bats a day, I wasn't getting the feedback from them that we were talking to the wrong people. Or the second thing, very common, is my reps suck. And I did not realize that skill gap was as wide as it is. And so then it comes down to, okay, well then here's the question I have to ask you. Do you think that you're going to solve the list problem or the skill gap problem having 3% connect rates or 25% connect rates? Because you have the problem whether we're here or we're not. It's just a matter of, do you want to solve it faster or not?
What is the customer success motion or enablement motion that you guys find that you need to couple with the
it's
the
aggressive
software itself? Yeah.
We're not your typical, here's a login, here's a support email or a chat. Good luck. Every account has a technical account manager, technical solution consultant, and we have a VP of customer strategy that literally hovers across every account. And so for us, a lot of it's because it comes down to operationalizing this at scale. Is historically, it's like, hey, here's 1,000 contacts. Great. Throw them into sequence and run them all the same. Now it's, here's 1,000 contacts. 200 look like this, 600 look like this, 200 look like that. What do we do with them? Where do they go in the system? And how do we help the reps? How do we weaponize the reps' time to go after the right buckets at the right time? And so for us, it's not just a log in and go. It's a very much a hand holding. Like we always tell people, it's like eating It's like eating lunch with your non-dominant hand at first. It's like, I'm right-handed, so if I go and try to eat lunch with my left hand, I'm like real slow and awkward. It's like, that's how it's going to feel at first. This feels awkward for a couple of reasons. One is your reps aren't used to having this many conversations. This means they're not used to getting their ass kicked this fast, right? Or this much. And so they get in their head. Or they get in the pocket and they're like, all right, I'm crushing it. I'm in a rhythm. I'm talking to someone every 4 dials. I'm starting to get better a lot faster. But we have to be there along the way, right? There's a lot that can break in a go-to-market function, especially a phone-led one. Right, you have the dialer, which spam likely issues. Is the dialer looking at your numbers? Are your numbers marked as spam? Do they have a way of identifying that, remediating that? You have your data providers. You have 20% bad data. That should be like 8%, right? You're never going to get to 0. But that only seems like 12 points. But no, that's a drastic difference if I can drop it from 20 to 8. And so it's looking at the data quality. It's looking at the conversion in the back end. It's the title analyzing, right? Back to the disposition. Right. Yes, we have 25% connect rates, but we have a lot of not interested, a lot of not me's, not refers. How do we then shift our list building? And so we take a very consultative, which is great because most everyone on our team has had some sort of consultative background. We take that with our account management and success.
That's Josh, we should get on a future conversation some points of view on fundamental SaaS economics, i.e. Net profit, because what you're highlighting there is actually, in my belief, a strong undercurrent in SaaS that really hasn't been fully recognized yet. Because if you're in any board meeting, there's probably some jackass board member that's still hammering on moving customer success, enablement, whatever you want to call it, post implementation into self-service models, into highly streamlined
AI can do it.
Product led. And fundamentally, like that's where everything is screwed up here. I think the 85%, net profit of SaaS is a false flag that was created by early adopters, who didn't have a high expectation, but like now you've got a really high expectation. And to your point, you don't just have to give people better tools. You have to help them use those tools better. So that's certainly an interesting trend.
Well, and on the customer success side, like one reason why things are not as profitable as they should be, and one reason why LTV to CAC is like you're crushing it at 4-to-1, is because we haven't paid attention to churn flags and retention as much, right? Expansion, right? Like net revenue retention should be at 1.2, 1.25, right? If you're doing it right, it's just gross dollar retention should be at 94, 97 if you're doing it right. But a lot of people are sitting at the low 80s. They're sitting at less than 1 on NRR, and it's because they haven't closed the back door. You can have the front door wide open. If the back door is open too, it's just blowing through. LTVs are lower, et cetera.
Well, it's funny too, like going back to your description of what you're doing in customer success to enable these people to actually use your product. I mean, Justin and I helped him built a whole services business around helping software companies get people to use their product, right? Like that itself is literally a consulting business in its own right? Like, so the fact that you're taking that into, I don't know, maybe you have a services arm that makes a ton of money too, but like, I mean, that is just an interesting, the level of commitment that you have to getting your customers. Cause at the end of the day, everyone's looking for software to be a magic bullet and push the easy button, and nothing you just outlined is easy.
Nothing. I have not.
That's probably the biggest takeaway that I would have there. Like if your business is throwing up, to your point, like, sub 95% gross retention and your NRR sucks, and you're still doing things the old, like if there's no excuse for those items, like not we're intentionally investing here or this, bond was fundamentally changed. Like that's where I think you're going to see just a lot of shedding here, going forward, especially with, everything that's going on from a claimer to efficiency and a flight to quality. And to your point, really the desire for outcome-based pricing. I think just there's a lot of organizations really poorly positioned that aren't taking really kind of core pillar aspects and saying, hey, we're going to invest here and therefore our economics are going to be a little bit different. They're still trying to solve everything in that hyper easy manner.
They are. Yeah, PLG is like real sexy, but in practice, PLG is
And real hard.
very, very difficult, and it takes insane
There
amount
are
of
very,
iteration.
very few examples of successful PLG companies and motions.
They love the thought of PLG, but PLG is actually a lot of work. It's
a ton of work.
Like 30 experiments a month minimum for you to actually start doing conversion rate optimization, retention, adoption, all that kind of stuff. So
most of your darling PLG stories also eventually moved into at least an enterprise sales motion.
HubSpot.
Because there's certainly a cap of expectation there.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, to Justin's point about, board members saying crazy things in board meetings, without failure, you're going to get that comment. Why don't we just ship the PLG? Like, this is ridiculous.
Correct.
Okay. Sure.
Well, it's like the pendulum swings entirely. It's like some groups who tried PLG, like just go straight to enterprise. I'm like, bro, you're in for a hurting.
Hey, I enjoy that.
Yeah, it's like, well, we got to grow by 2x this year. We're going to shift it all to enterprise. Like, well, first of all, your sales cycle is going to be at least a year. So good luck hitting that target.
Have fun with that pipeline.
Yeah.
So Joey, obviously, we're even past time at this point. So obviously a super deep topic. If folks want to find out more, about how you guys are doing things a bit differently, where do you recommend that they go?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a phone motion, TitanX.io is a great spot. If not, I say polarizing things on LinkedIn and hurt people's feelings a lot. So that's a fun place if you're looking for entertainment.
Man. Love it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like there's certainly some more conversations we need to have around this topic, Wags, but the customer success one's a super interesting one. So, join us as we continue to bring folks in to put spotlights on those areas. Joey, very much appreciate your time. Love the approach that you guys are taking over at TitanX. Definitely hop over to the site there and check those guys out. If you're tuning in for the first time, I don't know what you've been doing. For God's sakes, subscribe. We do these every fortnight. If you can do the math behind that, it's roughly every 2 weeks. Thanks for joining us on this call, and we'll see you next time, hopefully with our other friend in tow here on Cheat Code and Friends.